The dead can't speak, but the cameras can. In a world where killers move in shadows and truth gets buried, only one witness never blinks. From the most infamous abductions to murders hiding in plain sight, these aren't just cases solved by surveillance. They're moments where justice stared evil in the face and hit record. These are 15 chilling murder cases where CCTV footage cracked the silence, uncovered hidden monsters, and in some instances forced entire countries to confront the darkness next door. Each story you're about to hear contains real victims, real justice, and real terror, all caught on camera. 15. The disappearance of James Bulger. Evil caught on tape. UK, 1993. Sometimes when people say monsters don't exist, they're wrong. Other times, they just look like children. It was an ordinary afternoon in Bootle, England, February 12, 1993. 2-year-old James Bulger was with his mother at the New Strand shopping center. She turned her head for a second. When she looked back, James wasn't there. For hours, no one knew what happened. A missing child in a crowded public space? Maybe he wandered off. Maybe he'd turn up. He didn't. The truth was far worse. It was CCTV footage that cracked the first layer of this case. Grainy, black and white, and horrifyingly calm. The footage showed James being led away, not by an adult, but by 2 boys. 10 years old, just 10. John Venables and Robert Thompson. They weren't babysitting him, they were abducting him, walking him away like a doll in slow motion towards something unthinkable. The footage showed them leading James through the mall and onto the streets. For nearly 2 miles, they paraded him through neighborhoods, past strangers. James cried, stumbled. People saw them. Some even asked, but the boys said he was their little brother. No one questioned children. What happened next is almost impossible to say aloud. They didn't just kill James, they dismantled him, body and soul, in a final act of brutality masked as carelessness. They laid his broken body on the train tracks, hoping steel and speed would erase what they'd done. But the CCTV didn't lie. It showed the beginning. And from that beginning, the country was forced to face the unthinkable. That monsters can come with round cheeks and school shoes. That innocence can kill its own kind. That evil sometimes doesn't grow. It arrives young. 14. The murder of Jill Meagher, a smile that hid a predator. Australia, 2012. The last thing her husband saw was a smile. The last thing the world saw was a man waiting. Jill Meagher was walking home from a night out with friends in Melbourne, September 22, 2012. It was late, but not too late. The streets weren't deserted. She lived just 5 blocks from the bar. She never made it home. At first, it seemed like she vanished into thin air. Her phone stopped pinging. Her handbag was found discarded on a side street. Her husband waited, called, walked the route himself, but she was gone. Then came the breakthrough. CCTV footage from outside a bridal shop on Sydney Road. A flicker of motion. Jill walking alone. Then a man approaching from behind. He speaks. She turns, smiles. They talk briefly. She disappears from frame. The man was later identified as Adrian Ernest Bailey, a convicted rapist on parole. He wasn't chasing her, he was anticipating her. A predator rehearsing silence in the dark. He knew the route. Knew how long she'd linger outside the bar. When Jill turned to smile, she wasn't greeting a threat. She was acknowledging a stranger who seemed harmless. That illusion lasted seconds. The camera caught her final piece before violence stepped in. When you watch the footage, the chill doesn't come from what he does, but from how still the world stays around it. Danger doesn't always charge. Sometimes it simply waits to be invited. 13. The murder of Lisa Harnham, death from the 15th floor, Australia, 2011. If someone falls from a building in the middle of a city, you assume someone saw it. But what if they didn't see the truth? Lisa Harnham was 30, beautiful, bright, a Canadian living in Sydney with her fiancé, Simon Gitney. Outwardly, their life looked perfect. Stylish apartment, expensive clothes, wedding plans. But beneath it, Lisa was terrified. She was planning her escape in whispers, packing more fear than belongings. Lisa knew Simon was watching her every move, measuring every hesitation. That morning, she saw a sliver of freedom and reached for it. But the hallway camera told a different story. It didn't capture a woman falling, it captured a man dragging her arm, her bag, her will. Seconds later, she was dead, and all that survived was footage that proved she'd tried to run. The camera didn't catch the murder, it caught the moment of no return. In court, the footage shattered Gitney's defense. He was found guilty and sentenced to 26 years. Lisa's voice had been silenced, but the camera spoke for her. If you think this is chilling, stay with us. The final case is a bonus, one that haunts more than any other, and you won't forget it. 12. The stalking and murder of Shanna Grice, UK, 2016. She reported him 5 times. They fined her for wasting police time. Then she ended up dead. Shanna Grice was just 19. She lived in Brighton and had broken things off with her ex-boyfriend Michael Lane, but Lane didn't let go. He followed her, showed up at her work, installed a tracking device on her car. Shanna went to the police again and again. But instead of investigating Lane, they accused her of misleading them and fined her. Then, on August 25, 2016, Shanna was found dead in her bedroom. Her throat had been slashed, her body burned to destroy evidence. CCTV footage would become the smoking gun. Lane's car was caught near Shanna's house at times that contradicted his alibi. Footage showed him buying canisters of fuel and disposing of evidence. He left digital footprints everywhere. He thought no one was watching. He was wrong. CCTV didn't just convict Lane, it exposed systemic failure. The Sussex police were later heavily criticized. If they had believed Shanna, she might still be alive. 11. The disappearance and murder of Bianca Devins, New York, 2019. In the age of Instagram, even death goes viral. Bianca Devins was 17. She had an online life, gaming, art, growing social presence. She met Brandon Clark on Discord. At first, he seemed like a friend, but underneath the filters and texts, Clark was possessive. On July 14, 2019, they went to a concert together in New York. Afterward, in a jealous rage, Clark murdered her in his car. Then he took photos. He posted them to Discord, to Instagram, to Snapchat. The internet exploded. But the horror didn't end there. CCTV footage from local intersections showed Clark's vehicle parked in a remote area, matching the timeline and route Bianca's phone had traveled. His movements were recorded again when he attempted to take his own life in a failed suicide attempt. The footage stitched together the narrative, frame by frame. It confirmed her final moments. It caught him trying to escape the story he wrote in blood. He lived, he was convicted, but the images still circulate. The internet doesn't forget. 10. The killing of Vanessa Marcotte, Massachusetts, 2016. She went for a run in daylight, in her hometown, where everyone knows your name. Vanessa Marcotte, 27, worked for Google. She was home visiting family in Princeton, Massachusetts. On August 7th, she went out for a jog. She never came back. Search teams found Vanessa deep in the woods, burned, stripped, brutalized. It was violence layered with intent, but there were no eyewitnesses, no sounds reported, just silence and smoke. So investigators turned to what sees without blinking, street-level CCTV. Hours of footage were poured over until it gave them a clue. A dark SUV circling the area. It led them to Angelo Colon Ortiz, a stranger-turned-suspect. His face didn't lie. Neither did the DNA. What you've seen so far isn't just evidence. It's resistance. Victims who left traces. Families who refused to stay silent. Investigators who replayed every frame. Because sometimes the lens sees what no one else can. If any of these stories made you stop and think, you're not alone. Subscribe and turn on notifications, not for us, but for the voices that can't speak. There are more stories to tell, more truths to uncover, and we'd be honored to have you with us. 9. The cold-blooded killing of Bianca Tanner, North Carolina, 2014. What if a killer returns to the scene, not with guilt, but calculation? Bianca Tanner, a 31-year-old teacher and mother, was reported missing by her boyfriend, Angelo Grimsley. He claimed she had stormed off during an argument, leaving her son behind. But something didn't sit right. Police searched the couple's home. Nothing, until they pulled footage from a nearby traffic camera. It showed Grimsley's car driving to a wooded area outside Charlotte at 2 a.m. He stayed for 20 minutes, then returned. That location was searched. Bianca's body was found buried beneath brush, strangled. CCTV captured not her final moments, but his. Grimsley confessed. But the camera proved he went back to make sure she stayed hidden. 8. The death of Nancy Cooper, the suburban facade, North Carolina, 2008. The suburbs are built on order, lawns trimmed, porches swept, marriages intact, until they're not. Nancy Cooper was a 34-year-old mother of 2 living in Cary, North Carolina. On the outside, her life fit the neighborhood's quiet script. Athletic, vibrant, recently separated, but still married. She went for a jog one July morning in 2008. She never returned. Her husband Brad claimed she'd run off, claimed he was asleep, but her body was discovered days later in a drainage ditch, strangled. No one had seen anything. No one had heard a thing. But one camera had. An ATM across town had quietly recorded Brad's car that morning, out far earlier than he claimed. His route traced eerily close to where Nancy would later be found. When investigators put the footage against his story, the gap between fiction and fact became damning. Brad Cooper was convicted not because someone saw him do it, but because a machine did. The final image wasn't of a man in the act. It was of a lie unraveling, one timestamp at a time. In the suburbs, the silence isn't peace, it's performance. And sometimes, the camera is the only one who knows the lines. 7. The slaying of James Foley. Terror caught digitally. Syria, 2014. This wasn't a hidden camera, it was staged, broadcast, and the world watched a murder. James Foley was more than a reporter, he was a frontline witness, documenting truth in places where truth got buried under rubble. When ISIS captured him in Syria, it became a global crisis. 2 years later, they released a video of his beheading. Not hidden, not anonymous, it was staged, calculated terror disguised as message. But beneath the propaganda, forensic analysts traced his killer through voice patterns, gait, and video artifacts. Jihadi John was unmasked as Mohammed Mwazi, a man who had once walked London streets. He became the face of modern terror until he was killed by a drone. But Foley's footage remains, chilling not because of what it showed, but because of who watched. 6. The motel room murder. The last footage of Bianca Devins, Chicago, 2017. They said she walked into a freezer by accident, but that's not what it looked like. Bianca Devins, 19, was at a hotel party with friends in Rosemont, near Chicago. Early morning, September 9, she vanished. Her body was found in a walk-in freezer, frozen, alone. But what happened in those missing hours? The hotel's surveillance footage showed Bianca wandering the halls, disoriented, clearly impaired. At 3:20 a.m., she staggered into the kitchen. Minutes later, she disappeared off camera, right into the freezer. Her friends gave conflicting stories. Her mother believed something more sinister had happened, but police ruled it an accident. The footage confirmed what happened and left people questioning why. No charges, no trial, but the tape remains, a haunting record of a girl disappearing in real time. 5. The parking lot abduction of Carlisha Freeland Geither, Philadelphia, 2014. She fought, she screamed, and still she vanished, but the camera caught everything. Carlisha, 22, was walking home from a family event when she was attacked. dragged into a car. The CCTV footage was clear, violent, heavily publicized. The man forced her into a gray Ford Taurus and sped off. That single frame gave police a make, model, partial license plate. 3 days later, Kalisha was rescued. Her kidnapper, Delvin Barnes, was arrested. She survived because a camera made her real, unignorable, not a statistic, a human life captured mid-abduction. 4. The elevator murder of Grace Millane, New Zealand, 2018. He smiled at her, asked for a drink, took her picture, and hours later, he took her life. Grace Millane, a British backpacker, met Jesse Kempson on a dating app while traveling in New Zealand. Hotel surveillance captured them together, laughing, entering the elevator. That would be the last time Grace was seen alive. The next footage showed Kempson alone, carrying a large suitcase. Later, purchasing cleaning products and a shovel. The footage told a story he never confessed to, one Grace couldn't tell. Grace had been strangled, buried in a shallow grave. Kempson denied everything. The footage stripped his story bare. He was convicted. 3. The case of Daniel Morecambe, a long silence broken, Australia 2003, solved in 2011. Kem was waiting for a bus, just like every other day, but this time, he never came home. 13-year-old Daniel Morecambe disappeared from a bus stop in Queensland. For years, the case remained unsolved. CCTV footage from passing buses showed Daniel standing alone, a car seen nearby. Police recreated the scene using the original footage in public appeals. Eventually, Brett Peter Cowan was arrested after an undercover operation. But it was the original video that kept the case alive in public memory, forcing a nation to keep looking. Sometimes it's not just solving the case, it's refusing to forget. 2. The killing of Bianca Roberson, road rage on camera, Pennsylvania, 2017. 1 second, a teenage girl was driving home. The next, she was shot in the head on a highway in daylight. Bianca Roberson, 18, was merging into traffic on Route 202. A man in a red truck didn't want to let her in. In a flash of rage, he pulled a gun and shot her through the window. She veered off and died on the side of the road. CCTV highway cameras caught the entire thing. Vehicle, make, model, partial plate. Witnesses confirmed it. Police tracked the killer, David Desper, within days. He didn't know a camera was watching, but it was. That's why Bianca got justice. 1. The parking lot killer, Jessica Hiringa, Michigan, 2013. She vanished at the end of her shift. No calls, no alarms, no goodbye. The gas station had no cameras, but the dark didn't hide everything. Nearby businesses captured something. A silver van lurking just out of reach. Seen before, seen again, seen too often. Investigators connected the vehicle to Jeffrey Willis, a registered offender already on their radar. The evidence wasn't direct, but it was relentless. GPS data, zip ties, handcuffs, prior assaults, it all pointed to him. Jessica's body was never found, but the trail she left behind told its own truth. She didn't just disappear, she was taken, and it took surveillance to drag her killer into the light. No trial could give her back, but the camera made sure she wouldn't be erased. Bonus case: the Delphi Murders, Liberty German and Abigail Williams. This one is different, not just because of what happened, but because of what didn't. 2 girls, 1 recording, 1 voice, and for years, no justice. Delphi, Indiana, February 13, 2017. Abigail Williams and Liberty German, just 13 and 14, set out for a walk along the old Monon High Bridge, a rusted rail line suspended above winter woods. It was the kind of day small towns are built on. Quiet, ordinary, harmless. But before sunset, both girls vanished. Their bodies were found the next day in a nearby ravine. Police never released how they died. What made the case unforgettable wasn't what was found, it was what one of the girls left behind. On Liberty's phone was a video. Grainy, brief, a man walking toward them, hands in pockets, head down, face just visible. His voice, low, steady, delivered 5 words that still echo across the country. Guys, down the hill. It wasn't shouted, it wasn't panicked. It was calm, as if what came next was already decided. Libby had the presence of mind to hit record. She knew, and in her final moments she made sure we would, too. The case dragged on for nearly 6 years. 2 very different police sketches were released to the public, one of an older man, one of someone far younger, sparking confusion and frustration. The public questioned if law enforcement was working with the right timeline or even the right theory. Details about how the girls died, what was done to them, or what exactly was found at the scene have remained sealed, fueling an atmosphere of mystique, suspicion, and whispered theory. Some believed the killer was someone local, others feared he wasn't alone. Then, in October 2022, came the arrest. Richard Allen, a CVS worker, a father, a man who had once processed photos for the victims' families. He had told police years earlier that he'd been on the trail that day. Somehow that never raised a flag. He was charged based not on DNA or a confession, but on sealed court documents and circumstantial evidence. Prosecutors pointed to his presence at the scene and statements that didn't line up. Some suspect his name may have been known to authorities early on and overlooked. As of now, Allen has pleaded not guilty. The trial has not yet concluded. The full story remains in the dark. But the tape, the voice, that moment lives on. Libby's recording didn't capture the act, but it caught the shift. It's not just the most haunting piece of true crime evidence in modern history, it's one of the bravest. Her voice is never heard, but her choice to press record cut through years of silence. Down the hill isn't just a phrase. It's a sentence carved into the memory of a town, a country, a generation. Justice may be coming, but the wound is still open, the truth is still sealed, and we are still watching. In every one of these stories, there's a moment where time breaks, before the footage and after. Before, there's noise, alibis, guilt wrapped in routine. But after, there's something colder, a clarity that's impossible to unsee. The frame freezes, the lie collapses, and a face, always a face, emerges from the dark. Some cameras catch crimes, others catch truths, and some capture the exact second a monster steps into daylight. If you remember their names tonight, remember this too. Evil doesn't always hide. Sometimes it waits in frame, watching, smiling, walking straight toward you. And if you're still watching now, you're not alone.